Hey there, Madonna here from Gathering Folds. Today we're going to be practicing folding in rings around the center, even when the piece that we'll be repeating is going to take multiple layers to complete. So we're going to be using a 48 fold triangle grid on a hexagon. That means there's 48 divisions from one side to the opposite side. It also means there's 48 divisions along the grid line from one corner to the opposite corner. 48 is a multiple of 3, and so you're going to need a division of 3 and then divide your grid in half until you reach 48. So for today's purposes, we're using a pattern with hybrid hexagon twists. And by the way, I'm going to be folding the pattern on this 48 fold grid. Also, good morning, Nancy. And I'm going to be working my way out in rings around the center, getting all the way out to the edge of the paper, and stick around until the very end for an exciting announcement about a new way that I have ready for y'all to start participating in to learn to fold origami tessellations and really dive deep into every topic, more than I can get into in an hour in a live stream. So with that said, I'm going to bring up the crease pattern very briefly, and we're going to look at what are the parts that we're going to be using. I'm going to start with a closed hexagon twist in the center. This hexagon twist has 6 of the same thing around it, not just locally, but also in the broader pattern as well. So as I go further and further out, it's always 6 of the same thing around this hexagon. And then these triangles have 3 different things on the 3 different pleats. I mean, these 2 hybrid hexagon twists are the same relative to this hexagon, but they are not the same relative to the triangle. And you can see that in the crease pattern because we have 2 spaces on this mountain fold and 3 spaces on this one. So that's a difference. These hybrid hexagon twists are the next hexagons out. And then outside of them, where their pleats overlap, we actually have an open triangle twist, different from the closed triangle twist closer in. This is an important distinction, and there's going to be 6 of those as well. Let's get that centered on your screen. More or less. There's going to be 6 of those open triangle twists around the central hexagon. And then there's another closed triangle that has 3 of the same things around it. So it's got these tube pleats, these 2 spaces between mountain folds on each side. It's got 3 of the same thing around, and you can see the mountain is connecting with the line that cuts through the corner of the hexagon on each of these 3. And that's the structure we're going to be working with. So 6 of the same around this closed hexagon, 3 of the same around this closed triangle, and then 2 of the same around this point, but that's not a point that we'll be really focusing on. So switching back to this view, I'm going to put myself where I can see your questions, and I'm going to go ahead and start folding in the center with that closed hexagon twist. And for the hexagon twist in the center, I'm not really paying too much attention to where exactly the center of the paper is. I'm just doing my folds relative to the corner. And so I'm folding my mountain straight out to the corner, my valley above it, working on the right-hand side. And I'll rotate and I want to make sure that I keep the previous one as I'm working on the next one. And I'm letting the center of my paper float up as I'm placing these plates into place. And the other thing I'm doing is accenting the central hexagon in the middle of the paper. Okay, so now that we've got that much in place, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can keep folding, so you can see what I'm folding, really. And I'm going to let my mountains and valleys fold all the way, getting closer and closer until I've got this tower that's kind of 2 spacings tall, which I'm gonna bop it and grab it, twist it around to get my closed hexagon twist flattened in place. And I'm gonna go ahead and use my bone folder to smooth out all of these creases. It's not essential. And then I'm going to flip over to the opposite side, and I don't have to pay attention to how I'm flipping because all of my plates are exactly the same. And then I'm going to put my 6 triangles that were the same around that central hexagon in. Now these were closed triangles at tube plate spacing. So I'm going to use my pens and show you with the tube plate spacing, we have our valley 1 spacing out from the folded mountain, and our mountain 1 space further than that. With the closed triangle, we are finding the grid intersection where our existing mountain and our newly drawn on mountain meet, and running a 3rd mountain out in the 3rd equal direction from that same grid intersection. And we can squash that twist. And because our twist that we're going to make from the overlaps of these triangles is on the opposite side, I'm going to go clockwise around and take the bottom of the tube that I just made to make the next closed triangle. And if you find that I'm moving too quickly for you to fold along with, that's okay. That's why this is being recorded. You can stop and pause as many times as you want. I just want to make sure that we get through the entire grid in the time that I have planned for this video. And so I'm adding these closed triangles one at a time. And by the way, also, this is a video with hybrid hexagon twists. I expect that if you're trying to fold this, you've folded quite a few origami tessellations before. And this particular move with the closed triangles is something that I taught a lot slower in the Advent of Tess series. So if you need a refresher on those closed triangles on the back, you can check out Advent of Tess. Now for this final triangle, I'm still going to have my valley 1 space out from the folded mountain. I'm just not going to be able to see that mountain past the corner of my first triangle. And likewise, I have my mountain 1 space further from that, so I can identify my target grid intersection. And for the purposes of not needing to keep track of things when we flip over, I'm going to run this new pleat through first. So notice what I did. I opened up the existing pleat so that my valley and mountain of the new pleat can run through first. And then my previously existing pleat can close on top. So now all of my pleat overlaps are exactly the same. And we're going to squash that closed triangle. And then once I have all 6 of those triangles, I can flip back to the hexagon side. So conveniently with this tessellation, I have a hexagon side and a triangle side. Now I'm going to pick one of these pleat overlaps. Excuse me. And I'm going to set up an open hexagon twist. Now, one of the things you might notice is that in the beginning I said this would be a hybrid hexagon twist, but now I'm saying to set up an open hexagon twist. And that's one of the nice things about this particular pattern, and frankly, how you can tell that I designed it specifically for this live stream, because we are able to set up these central ones as open hexagons and then move, in this case, one pleat. So for me, I'm looking at the crease pattern to see which pleat we move, and it turns out to be this one that's headed, okay, so we've got pleat from a triangle, that's definitely staying in place, pleat from another triangle, and when I look at the crease pattern, I see those 2 pleats from the triangles, and then the next one this way is the one that's moved. So it's going to move so that the mountain is shifted to the right one spacing. So the mountain is now heading straight in to the center of the twist. And let's make sure that everyone can see that. So my mountain is now heading into the center. Another reference that I have here is I'm actually making a tube, and I'm keeping all of these other pleats that were in place still folded. And with that, I can squash, and I'm going to squash starting from the side that I didn't move the pleat. And then I'm going to poke inside and press. I'm going to zoom in on that a little bit, as far as I can zoom. So we can see that we have this pocket tucked underneath that has some new folds in it. And that's gonna get our new twist into place. And then for the purposes of today's folding, I'm going to continue going that way because it's going to be easier for us to set up the triangle wraps. It's going to be a little bit harder because we need to untangle this, but then when we're setting up the next hexagon, notice how this third pleat here I put in just like it's an open hexagon. It's going to run and it's going to hit right under the corner of this hexagon, and we're going to end up with an accordion pleat. So these 2 pleats stacked on top of each other with the triangle wrap tucked down underneath. And then for this one, since I already know which pleat I'm moving, I'm going to add one more around the hexagon this way, add one more, and then the next one, that last one, is going to make a tube with the existing pleat and have its mountain heading straight in to the center of what would have been the open hexagon. And so I'm going to work my way around the whole tessellation, or work my way around the whole ring around the center, doing the same move, setting up these triangle wraps. And one thing that I want to emphasize here is that I'm only leaving the triangle wraps for later because this is the first ring around the center. If I was doing another ring around the center, which we will be seeing, I'm going to go back and take care of those triangles as soon as I set them up. So repeating the same thing as that second hybrid hexagon, we want to make sure that we maintain the mountain of the plate that was moved as we're setting up our triangle wrap, which will look like it's right under the corner of that twist, of the previous twist, that is. And we're going to go around setting up the rest of our twists in exactly the same way that we did on the previous hexagon. So why do I call this a hexagon instead of a pentagon? Well, it still has 6 pleats. And for me, that's the most important thing. Like, what's the connectivity of the shape? Not what does it look like once it's folded. So repeating again, putting in that triangle wrap first, and then finding my remaining pleats. And we actually have 2 tubes here. We have this tube with the standard pleat, and then this tube with the pleat that's been shifted. And then rotating again, we'll do the same thing. Opening up our pleat overlaps so we can find the third pleat in the new twist to cause the triangle wrap under the old twist. Then finding the 4th and 5th pleats as if they were going around an open hexagon. And it's just the 6th that is acting like it's part of a closed hexagon. Now, we have a slightly different pleat situation up here because we're approaching all the way around. We had another pleat passing through here, so we only see the tube in here and not further up. So that's what's going on right there. And I'm going to then open my pleat overlaps, just like all the rest of the twists that we've done, opening everything up to find that new mountain. It's going to pass under here. And I'm going to switch to look at this view for a moment just to make sure I don't go off screen. Because if I'm looking at the comments, I'm not able to see whether I'm on screen or not. And one of the things that's going on here is I need another triangle wrap on this side, and it needs to be on that pleat that is shifted. So I want to put that in next. One of the things I can do is identify that is going to be the center if I had an open hexagon here. And I already have a pleat going this way, so that pleat that was shifted has to be going along that line there. And the valley is going to be on the left-hand side of it. So I'm going to pop this existing mountain down on that valley, let the mountain run past, and make my triangle wrap on top of that. And that's going to free me up to get the remaining pleats of my hybrid hexagon twist. And so I can go ahead and squash. Okay, now I've got 6 triangle wraps that I left behind on the back. So I'm going to flip over, and these are all going to become open triangle twists. If you remember from the beginning, we had the closed twists close into the center, and then after those next hexagons, we had the open twists. So in order to get those open twists, I'm going to shift the mountain 1 spacing and put the valley on the far side of the top of those 2 accordion pleats. One cue that I have is that I end up with tube pleat spacing. And then I'll rotate and do the same thing on the next triangle. And again, I want to reiterate that I've only left these triangles for the end of the ring around the center. So effectively, we've done 1 ring around the center, even though this is our 3rd time going around the center. That just counts as 1 ring because it's the first time that we've reached a tiling break, a place where twists are folded and there's no pleat overlaps. We just split it up into 3 parts because of flipping the paper over, and I know that's a place where a lot of people get lost. So we're going to stay on the triangle side for right now, and I'm going to actually bring back the crease pattern one more time. And what we need to find is where that triangle goes. And it's a little bit tricky because there's 2 pleats that it could be on, or in the, well, it's not really possible to do in the orientation of the crease pattern right now because we've flipped to the other side. So let's actually return to the hexagon side. If we're doing this from a crease pattern, what we want to see is, okay, I'm going to look at this pleat that was shifted. Okay, the pleat before the one that was shifted. Because when I look at this crease pattern, I'm seeing this pleat was shifted. This one is the continuation of this flat line. And it doesn't look like it once it's been folded, but if you open up a little, you can see that this line is continuing along this edge. So we're looking at this pleat to put our closed triangle, and that's going to be at tube pleat spacing everywhere, which means that we could go ahead and put in a triangle wrap where we need it to be. Or we could say, I'm just going to grab this pleat as I flip over, and I'm going to fold my closed triangle twist on that in a way that has 2 spaces between parallel mountains. or in this case, 2 spaces between parallel valleys seen from this side, 3 spaces between parallel mountains. Okay, so that is our reference point. And I'm going to switch back so we can see a little bit more of what I'm working with. And I'm also going to stick the comments where I can see them more permanently. Okay, because this was the last thing that I need the crease pattern for. So looking at this side, we have the pleat coming out from under the corner of the open triangle, as opposed to the pleat that makes a tube with the open triangle. And we're going to identify our target triangle. Yeah, may as well. And we're going to go ahead and squash it. So there's a little bit of back and forth of, do you squash it right now? Do you wait until you have other twists in place? Do you start with a different twist? But this is our reference, and so here we go. Now, this pleat overlap is not going to be nice to open on the other side, and it's leading to a hexagon, so I'm going to open up and reorder a little bit. And I'm going to find out when I flip to the other side exactly how this is going to work, because I know that I'm going to have 3 of the same exact thing around this closed triangle. And actually, I'm going to bring back my crease pattern so I can see exactly how to do this and make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And I'm going to have, let's see, I'm going to have this hexagon over on this side. I'm going to have this triangle coming up through here. And I'm just really looking and seeing what can I do to make this work out. And so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and give you a cue of where that center is, because both of these 2 pleats are acting open. So my center is right there in the middle on top. So if you take this tube and that tube, in the middle of both of them is my center point. And then, since things need to be the same all 3 ways around this closed triangle, I'm going to have tube pleat spacing around this side as well, just like I had on this side. And that mountain is headed straight into the center. So that is my closed mountain, and I can go ahead and set up the rest of my pleats and this triangle wrap over here as if they are open hexagon twist pleats. So we have these 2 pleats from triangles that are overlapping, and those are both acting like open hexagon pleats, and then the closed one is making a tube relative to the pleat from the closed triangle. And that's going to be as much as I need to see from the crease pattern, so now comments are going to be visible to me the rest of the time. And by the way, if you're watching the recording, definitely feel free to write comments as well. It's one of those things that's really helpful when you can get your questions answered. And then I have this triangle wrap that I'm going to flip over, and this is going to be an open triangle. So I'm shifting the pleat over, and squashing. So one of the things about this point here is there's the same thing on two sides. And so flipping back over, we can see these edges are parallel across that point where there were two things on both sides. So now we need to fold. So I've got my next set of parallel pleats. I'm going to be heading across them from this side over to that side. And I need to figure out exactly how I'm doing that. One of the things I can tell is that this hybrid hexagon is exactly the same as this one. So they're in the same orientation. These copies are going to be exactly copied. So these two are exactly the same. They've got the same open triangle up here. So I know that what happens on this pleat needs to be the same as that hybrid hexagon. So I'm going to have 3 spaces between mountains, between this mountain and the next one. So that's the first cue that I'm going to use, setting up that triangle wrap. And then I'm going to look and say, oh, the pleat that was coming in here was the closed one. This one is the open one. So that is going to let me say, okay, well, the other cue I have is that my corner is 1 space out from the closed hole of that closed triangle. So I can, instead of having it set up like that, I can pop that paper over and say, okay, that is a corner of an open hexagon twist. So I'm going in one, out one, next pleat. In one, out one, next pleat. And working all my way around, I can identify where that next triangle wrap needs to go. And get my twist in place. So notice it's exactly in the same orientation as this one over here. And both of these two twists are going to be closed twists. This one, because it's closer to the closed hexagon that we'll be seeing out here. And this one, because it's the same as the 3-fold rotationally symmetric position that we identified earlier. One of the other nice things about this particular tessellation is we never have denser than tube pleat spacing. So as I'm setting up this hexagon, I'm going to do a little bit of pleat magic, which is I'm going to take this mountain fold, I'm going to open the pleat that crosses it, and I'm going to pop it down so this mountain zigzags, making a compound wrap over that. And notice I did not have to open anything further out. So that's a little bit of pleat magic for you. And I'm going to flip back to the hexagon side where I will identify and say, okay, these two were the same as these two, but I'm going up around here. Do I have anything that's an exact copy of that? Well, relative to this, no, because that next one would be up in this area. So we're going to figure this out from the closed triangle, where we say, okay, I need to open the pleat overlap. I'm going to need tube pleat spacing going around this closed triangle all the way around. So that's my first triangle wrap. And like we saw on this one before, that pleat that goes around the closed triangle in tube pleat spacing is the one that's acting closed. So I can then go and say, okay, this one up here is going to be my next corner of the open hexagon. So these are mostly open hexagons with some bits that are closed. And now I'm looking in the center. Is there a copy of this twist? Indeed there is. And I can see from that copy that both this triangle wrap and that triangle wrap are going to produce open twists. So flipping over, I'm going to squash first one and then the other. And flipping back, it's time to move to the next set of parallel pleats. I was just right here. It's time to go up here. And I can see that these two are exact copies. I'm going to need my next one up here. Again, with the 3 spaces over for that mountain. And the one that's coming in above the open triangle is acting closed. So I can pop that out. My corner is going to be 1 space from this triangle wrap. And I can work my way around. Finding exactly where all of those other pleats that are acting open around this hybrid hexagon are going. And then I can squash. And looking at my copycat twist, I can see this twist is going to be closed, and that one I know from previous repeats is also going to be closed. So flipping over, I've got closed, and here I'm going to do that same pleat trick where I'm opening that first overlap and zigzagging my way across it. And for this next hexagon in here, I want to see if I can identify where my triangles are going to go first. So I've got this closed triangle acting exactly the same as this one up here. And I'm going to have then another open triangle below, and I'm going to not actually be able to see what's going on there, but they're both going to act the same as this one, which has open triangles all around. And then let's see if that one was in this orientation. It's still a little bit unclear. Here's my reference. I'm going to have 2 triangles kind of facing off with each other. So I can open this up and say, okay, when these 2 triangles are facing off with each other, there's 3 grid spacings between mountains. And so I'm going to have 3 grid spacings between mountains. And you might be wondering, why am I doing something different now? It's so that we can find the hybrid hexagon twist easier and flip the paper over less. And then over here, I can say, okay, 1 spacing out from under the corner is where the new open triangle happens. And I'm setting these up and then laying them down as triangle wraps because I've got a lot of 3D-ness on the other side that I want to make into a hybrid hexagon twist. And in this case, I only need to find 2 more pleats to get that set up. And since I'm experienced at using hybrid hexagon twists, it was pretty clear to me which of those 4 pleats that were already in place was the closed one. But you could also say it's the one that's making the tube around this closed triangle. So that is what's going on there. And then we determined already by looking at the backs at the triangle side that these were both going to be open triangle twists. So let's do the same treatment for the next twists. This one is going to be closed. It's going to have that spacing, and we're putting the hexagon in here. So I'm leaving this pleat that's not involved in the hexagon flipped over in the opposite direction. And then on the other side of this triangle, so over here is going to act the same as over here. And that means that I get 2 spaces out along this pleat before I hit my valley. Did I mention that I haven't folded this before? This is always a puzzle to figure out these hybrid hexagon pieces. So now I've got my triangles in place, and when I flip over to find my hexagon, I'm looking for, okay, this is a copy of this one. So what I'm working on has this orientation. I need to pop this so I can set it up in that orientation. We also have experience setting up this twist from the previous repeats that we've worked on already. And flipping back, these are both going to be closed twists. So this one is the same as this one, because what's on either side of that point is the same. And kind of for the same reason, this one is also closed because it's paired with that one. And I'm going to do the little open up and reclose with the pleat flipped over in the opposite direction trick. And now we're going to have that same setup that we had before with the 3 spaces between these mountains. And this pleat that's free to wiggle is the one that will fold over to make that a triangle wrap. And then I've got 1 spacing out to reach that corner. And again, the pleat that is free to wiggle will be the one that lays down for that triangle wrap. And flipping over, we're going to find that the pleat forming this tube around the closed triangle is the closed one. And that's going to let us find the remaining open pleats. And I just want to reiterate, when I'm saying closed and open pleats here, I'm talking about pleats that are acting like they're going into a closed or open hexagon twist. And flipping over, these will all be open triangles. And now I'm setting up my next closed triangles. I've got one in here with the corner 2 spaces out, just like this one. And I've got one in here where the mountain is going straight to the corner of the open triangle, just like it is over here. And flipping over, I'm going to have, let's see, which orientation? This one's the same as this one, so this pleat was coming in closed. There we go. And these 2 triangles will both be closed. And again, this one with the pleat overlaps, I'm going to do that little switcheroo magic trick. Ta-da, the pleat flipped over, and I didn't have to open all of the overlaps. And we're getting there. We're getting around. And this is going to be corner 1 spacing out from under the corner of the closed triangle. And this one is going to have the mountain coming under the corner of the nearest closed triangle. And flipping over, this one is the closed one, so I'm popping out a spacing. One of the things that I've noticed is on this upper triangle wrap, as we're going around, we're alternating between sandwiching the next pleat right on top and then having them spaced back a spacing. So that is a useful reference when you're folding, that it's not always sandwiched on top. And these are going to be open twists. Like this next one that we see, it will not be sandwiched on top. And we're getting around to the last set of parallel pleats on this ring around the center. So for my next one, I've got 2 spaces to my corner on this pleat. I'm leaving that 3D in there. And then this one is going to have the mountain pass right under the corner of the open triangle. Flipping over, we're going to see that, so the copy is here, and the closed pleat is coming in on this side. So I'm going to have the extension carrying through on that side. And as we set this up, our next pleat on top of the triangle wrap will be an extra spacing away, so it won't be right stacked on top. And that was actually what confused me in the previous repeat, because I had kind of automatically defaulted it to being right on top. And then I was like, wait, this isn't working. And then flipping over, we've got our closed triangle twists. And I'm again going to do that pop the pleat trick. And next up, we're going to have 2 open triangles. Same references as we've been having. Except this time we have more pleat overlaps. And flipping over, this is the one where we are exactly on top of that wrap. And things are just coming into place very nicely, at least for me. And flipping over, these will both be open triangles. So up until now, as we've gone around the center, all of our triangle wraps have turned into both open or both closed. We will see. I do not think that will hold true for the next one. And so this one, I shifted the mountain over for that open triangle. And then I'm going to do the pop the pleat trick to get that into place. And now we have 2 more triangles. This one is going to be closed, and that one's going to be open. And so as we open up, that closed one is going to be going to have its corner 2 spaces out, just like that one. And this one is going to have 3 spaces between mountains here, just like this and this. And popping over to the other side, my closed one is going on the tube around the 3-fold rotationally symmetric closed triangle twist. So all good there. And additional reference, we do get the accordion over that triangle wrap. And now we've got, well, 2 triangle twist to fold, flipping over. This one is closed and the other one is open. And we're going to make it 1 more ring around the center. So let's take a moment to kind of visualize what's going on here and see that we've got our central motif, and that motif is being copied here and here and here and here and here and here. So these two are the same as these two. These two are the same as these two, etc. But we didn't go ahead and fold the whole repeat because that would lead to way too many pleat overlaps. And we can identify positions of rotational symmetry. We've got the 3 going on here. As we work our way around, we've got 2 on these locations. And so we have pairs of twists that are the same as well. There's a lot of structure that we're working with today. And it's important to be able to recognize, like, okay, these are the same, because then it means, okay, the next twist on here is going to be closed. And for today, I'm going to actually flip over to the triangle side to see like what we can figure out from here. And I'm going to arbitrarily pick a set of parallel pleats. These happen to be on my right hand side, and I'm going to work from this end of them to this end, because that's going to mostly direct pleats away from existing twists, because I don't want to be adding more creases to what I've already folded. And in here I can say there's going to be a triangle on this pleat, a hexagon on this pleat, and a triangle down here. And I'm going to go ahead actually and mark my triangles that are 3-fold rotationally symmetric, just so we don't confuse them with anything else. I'm going to zoom in. So we've got this 3 and a triangle, and that's leading into the next hexagon. And I'm going to need an open triangle over here and a closed triangle down here. So we're going to have that open triangle. And really, this is the way I look at things instead of doing everything from the crease pattern, because you can get lost in a crease pattern. But I'm just looking for, where are things the same in here? And then this triangle, I knew the reference because it's the same as these 2 triangles. And so, or rather, it's the same as these 2 coming down in here. And so I know I'm going to need a tube plate between them, which is this spacing, and then I let it lay flat. I could also say, okay, I'm going to have 3 spaces between these mountains and have that set up as well. And then flipping over, I'm looking for which of my hybrid hexagon orientations am I using here. And so I've got, so I'm going to look for where actually this hexagon is around things, and that's over here. So I've got these 2 leading to this one, and I'm going to have my closed bit going out in this direction. So got my open bits, And then this one's going to be my closed bit, and I'm going to have another open on the far side there. And that's good. I'm shifting gradually the orientations of my rhombuses, or sorry, my hybrid hexagons. And boom, boom, boom. Then flipping over, and we said this one was going to be open. And that one's going to be closed. And I'm going to do the flip the pleat trick. And these are going around the closed hexagon just like we had in the middle. So I'm going to set up more closed triangles to help me find that hexagon. And flip over. And this is going to be like our easiest twists to find because they're actually regular hexagon twists. And since it's so close to the edge, I'm just going to grab it and kind of wiggle it into place. And then flipping over, I'm going to squash my two closed triangles. And that moves me to the next set of parallel pleats. And I'm going to need to take care of the hexagon that's leaving from this pleat before I can take care of the one that I did first on the previous set of parallel pleats. I'm actually going to get a partial triangle twist up here, so I can set that up. And on the other side of this kind of extra wide tube, I'm going to have another open triangle, just like I have in these other areas. Now, is that the place to put it? Yeah, that's, no. Okay. I'm going to have the full open triangle here, but I need to shift over and let it lay down to have it as a wrap. And then I can flip over and say, okay, my closed direction is this one, and everything else is going around that. I'm very close to the edge here, so don't worry if it's a bit messier than normal. And flipping over, I've got my closed twist here and my open twist here, and I'm going to be opening this up to zigzag my pleat over the top. And then, I'm actually going to get another copy of a threefold triangle out here. And I'm going to have a closed triangle in here, passing under the corner of this triangle, open triangle. And when I flip over, I'm going to need the closed direction to be this way. because I'm working around here. The last one was that way, so it needs to turn this way. And that's going to be that plate there. And we'll just work our way all the way around with these same steps. And flipping over, this one's going to be closed. And it's going to be a new threefold position. This one's going to be closed, and it's not going to be a rotationally symmetric position. And then we're going to get more closed triangles around our closed hexagon, same as the center. And since it's so close to the edge, it could behave erratically, like that one tried to do. And we're going to squash the closed triangles around that. So really from here, we're repeating the same steps all the way around until we get back to the beginning, where we'll have an extra hexagon to put in right there at the end. And this is one of those ideas that is really central to how I fold. And when you are, when you're looking at a crease pattern, you don't necessarily see the tiling right away, which is why it's really helpful to actually have diagrams for that, to be able to say, hey, this is the tiling that I'm working on, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up the tiling that we were working on today, and looking at not just what twists, like what shapes are there, but also where are the symmetry points? What are some of the lines that pass through the tiling? And be able to start saying, okay, I see some options here, I see some options there, and getting into some of these other possibilities that weren't necessarily there before. So I'm going to show really quick two figures. One that I made for tessellations by tiles that I'll be featuring heavily in Tessellation Academy as well. So that's the new thing that I'm working on, Tessellation Academy. And in Tessellation Academy, we are going to be doing a beginner and an advanced tutorial for a particular topic. And then we're going to do a theory and design workshop live each month. And this is going to be like really exploration focused. It's going to be really folding skills focused. And it's going to try to help people see what I see when I look at tessellations. Because I don't just see a pattern, I see infinite possibilities. So the first of those diagrams, this is a tiling diagram. And it's saying there are hexagons, the hexagons have 6 triangle neighbors. There are triangles, the triangles have 3 hexagon neighbors. In this particular coloration, you have one choice of hexagon and one choice of triangle. And you can look at, okay, what is the maximum symmetry that's available? So these are the 6 things around this point are the same, or 3 things around this point are the same. You can move those symmetry points further out. You can move them even further out. And this is corresponding to different choices that you have available to you as you're folding. But I actually came up with a new diagram recently that shows a little bit better where those different choices are located. But one thing that I want to show you is that this is the structure we were using to fold. We were saying, okay, there's a central hexagon, and we're going to add a layer of hexagons around it and the triangles that fill in the gaps. Then we're going to add a layer of hexagons around that and the triangles that fill in the gaps. And now this last ring around the center, we're adding another ring of hexagons around that and the triangles that fill in the gaps. And this is completely ignoring where different choices have been made. It's just when there are hexagons alternating with triangles, we're going to fold it in this way. It's not the only way that you can fold these patterns. You can also start with 2 hexagons in the middle and then add a layer of hexagons around that. You can start with a triangle in the middle and add layers of hexagons around that. You can do it in stripes. But my preferred method is start with a hexagon in the middle and then loop around and then loop around and then loop around, and you're building out and out and out. And so this is the folding in rings around the center. And so the other diagram that I mentioned where we can see the choices better. So, whoops. So we've got, okay, every hexagon is the same, every triangle is the same. Then we have some of the hexagons have 6 things around them that are the same, and some of them have 3 things around them that are the same. Then we have some of them have 6 things around them that are the same, and some have 2 on either side that are the same. What we were working on today was this structure where we have a hexagon where 6 things around it are the same, a choice of inner triangle, a choice of outer triangle. Those outer hexagons, none of the things around them are the same. And then we have this outer triangle where 3 things around it are the same. Then there were also positions where things on either side were the same. So this is the structure we were working in today. There's, of course, more options. There's always more options. There's even more complex options that I haven't intentionally made designs in. I've probably accidentally, or not really accidentally, but stumbled into designs in these stylings. And you can also apply this to triangles, to squares. You can apply different symmetry styles to these things as well. So this is saying, I have a hexagon and it's the same hexagon everywhere, but only things on 3 sides are the same. The things on the other 3 sides are different. And I can take that further and say, okay, I have 3 different hexagons, and for each of them, things on 3 sides are the same. So I've got the light blue on 3 sides of the dark blue, light blue on 3 sides of the medium blue, dark blue on 3 sides of the medium blue, and also on 3 sides of the light blue. It's all entangled. And that, again, you can take as far as you like. You can just find so many options of how to fold. So these are examples of some of the topics that we'll be getting into in Tessellation Academy. And if you want to go sign up, the link is training.gatheringfolds.com/academy, ACADEMY. And I'll make sure that that's in the description as we finish up. And there's just so much to explore that I wrote out a curriculum for like what I'm going to do each month for the next 2 years, and it's barely scratching the surface. So this is really an opportunity to dive deep into these worlds of origami tessellations, where we are not just having 1 hour to look through a topic, but a beginner tutorial, an advanced tutorial, and then an hour of me explaining the theory behind it with diagrams, with crease patterns, with all of these tools, and having time to get your questions answered as well. So these will be live calls where you can ask questions, and the recording will be available for you to see into the future. So if you're interested in Tessellation Academy, definitely do check that out. I'm really excited about this. I have been wanting to open a membership for 2 years, and I think it's finally time to make it happen. So happy folding, everyone. I hope you enjoy. Go ahead and finish out your tessellation the same way that we did those first 2 edges, keeping in mind where your symmetric points are to help you find which triangles go where as you go the rest of the way around. So happy folding, everyone, and I'll see you next week.